Y'all, today we're going to put the spotlight on a podcast called Spirits Uncorked. It's a delightfully spooky, wine in hand podcast hosted by sisters Elizabeth and Erica. Every episode, they uncork a bottle and dive into ghost stories, haunted histories, shadow people sightings, and everything mysterious from the depths of Lake Lanier to abandoned restaurants. But look, the episode I'm going to play for you today is extra special because our very own Fear Daily writer, my co-creator of Fear Daily, Brennan Storr, steps out from behind the scenes to join the conversation. He was actually a guest on Spirits Uncorked. Now, Brennan is going to talk about chilling tales from his hometown, and he's going to share insider paranormal adventures you're not going to want to miss. It's honestly, this is the perfect chance for you to get to know the guy who's always working diligently behind the scenes of Fear Daily, making this show run. Not to mention just having fun with my friends over at Spirits Uncorked. So, y'all, grab your favorite bottle, settle in, and get ready for laughter and goosebumps and all that fun stuff. And of course, if you enjoy Spirits Uncorked, please go follow them today on your favorite podcasting app.
Imagine a town where the supernatural isn't just folklore, it's woven into everyday life. At first glance, this scenic mountain town seems quiet, even ordinary. But as the sun fades and the shadows stretch, an eerie presence settles in, blurring the line between the known and the unexplained. This is Revelstoke, British Columbia, a place where reality and the paranormal intertwine. On this episode of Spirits Uncorked, we're joined by Brennan Storr, author of A Strange Little Place, The Paranormal Secrets of Revelstoke, British Columbia. He's also a podcaster and one half of the Ghost Story Guys team. Brennan has spent years unraveling the chilling mysteries of his hometown and uncovering encounters that defy logic. We'll talk about his journey as a writer and storyteller, explore some of Revelstoke's most haunted tales, and, of course, share a drink. So settle in, pour yourself a glass, and step with us into a strange little place of our own today on Spirits Uncorked. All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to Spirits Uncorked. I am Elizabeth.
And I'm Erica.
And we have a really special guest today that I'm very excited to speak to. This is Brennan Storr. Hi, Brennan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Brennan is an author. He's a podcaster, and he is a paranormal buff who has done tons of research and uncovered a ton of mysteries, which I'm really, really excited to talk about today. So first things first, we need to go around and everybody let us know what you're drinking today. I will start. And I lose today, Erica. Usually Erica loses because she picks like the worst drink.
I go for cheap wine.
And that's exactly what I did today. So like to my shame, I'm drinking oak leaf Chardonnay, but I'm not above drinking cheap wine. And the last bottle of wine that I got was like $35 and I hated it. So this one is cheap and I know that I like it because it's fruity and it's like appley and citrusy. So I'm like, so there you go.
It's okay. I have a bottle of rosé. It's just called
Perfect.
Crozet. So that's what I have.
All right. Good for you. All right, Brandon, let us know. What are you drinking?
I am drinking El Jimador tequila tonight.
Oh my gosh. Look at you. You win.
I don't normally like El Jimador is mostly like a shooting tequila. It's not like great. It's kind of just very basic, but I had a lovely bottle of mezcal I just finished, and I can't justify buying another one quite yet because good mezcal is very expensive in Canada.
I love mezcal, yeah.
What's your favorite?
I don't know what the brand is. I work part-time at a bar.
Oh,
and
cool.
I'm a terrible bartender, but she will get variations of mezcal, and I enjoy it.
I can't remember my favorite either off the top of my head. I was just like, nope, it's gone.
Yeah.
There was one I also had an ounce of it. I've never had it again because I think in Canada it's like $140 a bottle when you can find it.
Oh, wow.
But it's a Sierra Negra.
Oh, okay.
Oh, if you happen to see it down there and it's not too expensive, grab it. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Okay.
Well, Brennan, I would love to hear your introduction of yourself. We talked about your book a little bit. Let us know about your podcast and what other projects are you into, and just a little bit about yourself.
Sure, yeah. So I mean, as you mentioned, I'm actually a full-time professional podcaster. So my day job is the Ghost Story Guys podcast. I've been doing that for 8 years. In addition to that, as you say, I wrote A Strange Little Place. The first edition of that came out in 2016 from Llewellyn, and then Beyond the Fray Publishing picked it up. This picked up the second edition in 2021, I think, or 2022, one of the two. And yeah, of course, we'll be talking about that. That is a sort of a history, a paranormal history of my hometown. I'm from a small town in the mountains in Western Canada. And I also recently launched with Brandon Scheck of Southern Gothic the podcast Fear Daily, and that
Oh, okay.
and that is a daily horror fiction podcast. So 2 stories every day, Monday to Friday, spooky stories, spooky horror
Oh,
stories.
wow.
And we have just we've been on the iTunes fiction top 10 for the last month. I think we it's really blown up. Yeah, we actually we're I think we were, if we're not still, ahead of Welcome to Night Vale and No Sleep. So it's just we've had this really just big hit. Things have kind of
That's
really
great.
it's
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
It's doubled like the show that I make my living with. It's doubled the numbers of that show already. It's crazy.
Oh, yay.
Oh,
That's
wow.
wonderful.
It's almost
Wow.
inconceivable, like it's hard to get your head around it. Like the thing you want to
Yeah.
have happen actually happens.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for you.
So
That is nice.
yeah.
We're still waiting for that to
Um,
happen.
I know.
Well, I spent last year, so far I've written probably about 1,200 pages of original fiction
Oh, wow.
for the show. The premise of the show is that these are all stories found on a secret server hidden somewhere, lost in the 90s. So it's kind of like horror stories from the 90s and before.
Oh,
Ooh,
nice.
I can see that as a TV series.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I
Man,
I'd
you
love
stay busy.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you do so much writing. Like I just finished your book, A Strange Little Place, which I loved, by the way. So I
Oh,
gotta
thank
highly
you.
recommend. Actually, I listened to it on Audible.
Oh, cool.
And really fascinating because it's your hometown. And I was just shocked at the sheer amount of, number one, accounts of paranormal happenings, and then number two, just like how well you researched it and
Oh, thank you.
tried very hard to get firsthand accounts and to verify things. And so I thought it was a really well done book. But I would love to hear about your writing process, whether it is, you're writing true accounts or you're writing fiction. What is that like for you?
Well, writing, I mean, having done all this writing for Fear now, I kind of realized how much easier Strange was. I mean, and Strange still took me a long time to write. I've come to realize later in life I very likely have some form of neurodivergence, whether that's, I mean, probably very likely on the autism spectrum, but very possibly also maybe some attention deficit stuff. So I was always a guy who I would have great ideas, but I had no follow through. And so when I had this idea to do the book, like I started writing it 13 years ago in 2012 is when I decided to do this because I'd had some weird experiences growing
Mhm.
up and a few as a sort of a younger man, and I would tell the stories at parties or to my friends, as just as a spooky thing when everyone was, kind of had a few. And I eventually I thought, geez, I wonder, because my family used to tell stories, some weird stuff that happened in the house they were growing up in. And so I thought, oh, I wonder if there's enough to like, I'll do like just collect the stories as a family history. And then it kind of turned into a book.
Hmm.
But it still took me 3 years to research and write it. But yeah, so that was actually easier now that I realize, like at the time it seemed
Really?
very hard. But
I mean,
now
it sounds very hard just because there's everything in there from like shadow people to UFOs to Sasquatch. I mean, everything is so, specific. So I can just imagine the time it took to kind of track all these stories down and get the people to talk about them and verify, and all of
that
that. I need to visit this place actually because what the
Yeah, it
heck?
sounds pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah, that was the hard part, honestly. I mean, Ghost, like we think about kind of where paranormal culture is now, and it's pretty accepted. It's kind of, every second TV show is about ghost stuff. But 13 years ago, it was not quite that. 2012, 2013, it was just a little more people, especially in a small town. which is, it's a very working class town. The primary employers are the railroad and the sawmill. Or at least they were when I was growing up. I grew up living across from a rail yard. And so these are not people typically who are, kind of given to talking about that stuff, I would say stereotypically. So yeah, I was lucky enough that my family is fairly well known. My grandfather was on my dad's side. He was the guy who sold everyone their houses when they first moved there back in the 50s. He kind of sold everyone their insurance and then he moved into selling houses. So everyone kind of knew him. And then I had worked in a grocery store, like Bocce's, it mentioned in the book. I worked there from 2000 to 2006. So I got to know a lot of people that way. So that kind of helped me get an in a lot of ways. Because quite often people were not very open about that. Getting people to open up was the tough part.
There was something in your book. You said that you had some encounters that even you felt too embarrassed to talk about and claim them as your own.
Oh yeah. When I wrote the first edition, I was still an office manager, and so I had this. I've always had an interest in paranormal stuff, but for me to actually say I saw X or Y
Mm-hmm.
is not really like that was tough because the whole time I was writing the book, I was thinking like, geez, I have this other life. Like I have this job where I was working for this little small consulting company, and so we had all these contracts with government people and, I was booking meetings, like serious, all grown up job stuff. Right. And I just thought, oh, hell, I don't want these people to think I'm crazy. So
Yeah.
I was really hesitant to kind of own some of the stuff that happened, especially some of the crazier stuff. Because when I really started getting into it, I had some really stuff that I've never had anything that vivid happen since.
Hmm.
And it's very hard sometimes it's even hard to believe it happened.
Hmm.
And so, but I had a really difficult time, one, kind of fitting that into my worldview, because I didn't really believe in ghosts when I started this. I thought the
Really?
story, yeah, not really. I thought the stories were cool, but,
Yeah.
and I had my experiences, but again, there's this weird thing that happens with ghost stories where in the moment you have them, they seem very real, but
Hmm.
it's almost like they're like an infection or something. Your brain actively tries to rationalize a way it couldn't have happened,
Hmm.
right? Because it doesn't fit with the way we see the world.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I had stuff happen when I was younger, but no, when I got into the book, it was just like, cool stories. And then I saw some stuff and man, I had to rethink my view of the world, basically.
Yeah.
My one like really dramatic encounter, which is in the book, and I'm happy to tell you if you're interested to hear it.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Okay, so like I said, I started working on the book in 2012. When I got back from that first research trip, I was at the office and I worked for, like I said, a consulting company that used to be headquartered in downtown Victoria. Victoria is the capital of the province of BC. It's on the southern tip of Vancouver Island. It's about 300,000 people, so it's not a huge place. And my office was in a place called Bastion Square, which is kind of like the original fort that everything else was built on top of. And there had been, up till I think the turn of the 20th century, public executions in that place. So it's kind of known as like a haunted spot.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't really on my mind. It was just like, yeah, sure, haunted, whatever, fine. But so I was back at work, and the people I worked for were sort of very early telecommuters. So there was almost never anyone in the office aside from me and the receptionist. So I was chatting to the receptionist. I was telling her these stories, some of the stories I'd found on this first research trip. When all of a sudden, I saw out of the corner of my eye this all black head peek out from behind a coat rack, hold there for several seconds, and then go back. And I nearly lost my mind. But because she hadn't seen it, only I had seen it, I could not react. I refused to let it show on my face, but I could feel, almost actually see the color draining out of the day. Like I was so panicked. But again, it was so many feelings, I just shoved it way down and kind of just said, no, it's fine. But what I noticed is we had, when people did come into the office, there were two dogs they would bring with them. The owners had a Labradoodle. One of the programmers, he had a beagle. And the Labradoodle started acting, when it was in the weeks that followed, it started acting like it would when someone was playing with it, when no one was playing with it. So it would kind of lay on its back and sort of wave its paws in the air, and it would do that when it was on its own.
Hmm.
And then the smaller dog
Mm.
would, one day I was in my office, which was next to the programmers, and at the back of the building, there was a youth center. And so when the dog would started running towards the back of the office barking, I just assumed he was hearing the kids, and that's what he was barking at. So I didn't pay too much attention to it. But then on one of those trips, he would just bark, 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 and then he yelped
Oh,
and he ran back into the programmer's office. Didn't come out again the rest of the day.
oh,
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, not happy about that. But anyways, so I was like, that's weird, And then I want to say about a week after that, I was at home. My wife, like the joke, she has a grown-up job. So she would have to go to work at normal times. So I would quite often wake up and she'd be gone already. So this morning it was May by this point, if I remember right. So it was a very sunny morning. She'd opened the blinds before she left. I woke up and I looked over her side of the bed where the clock is, and 8 or 8:30, something like that. And I rolled on my back I rolled over the side to look at the clock, rolled on my back, and I realized it looked like there was someone standing to my left. But there couldn't have been someone to my left because there's a nightstand there. And so I turned to look, and I saw, and bear in mind, this is before I had done any real research, I saw a shadow in the shape of a man standing next to me. And before I could react, it fell across me in the bed. And I felt it, like when it touched me, I felt this electric charge throughout my body. I felt like I'd been electrocuted.
wow.
And then I passed out. And I woke up
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I passed right out. And I woke up half an hour later and I thought that was weird.
Ooh.
But yeah, but that marked the beginning of the worst depression I had experienced up to that point since I was a teenager. So probably about 10 years, 15 years.
Oh wow.
And it hung around me for about another 2 weeks or so until I provoked an argument with my wife, which I never do. I'm not a conflict-oriented person. But for whatever reason, I was just ornery. And as soon as we had this fight, it was like popping a bubble, like popping a boil. It was just gone.
Mm.
But for that 2 weeks, I genuinely, like, I was like a zombie sometimes. I remember driving up the driveway of our apartment building and just kind of like zoning out, my foot barely on the accelerator because I just felt like there was something hanging off me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so like I've seen the shadows since then, but never, only once, maybe twice more that close, but neither time could it touch me. And that was because I think because of my accidental exorcism, which I don't know if I talk about in the book. But I can tell you that story real quick if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
don't remember that one.
okay, see, I don't think maybe it's not in the book. So
No, I
about a year after all this happened, I was over in Vancouver on the mainland for I think there's 3 concerts across 4 days. I was staying in Flip Key, which was like an early Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
It was just I was renting a room in someone's house, which was pretty terrible. But I left my room. I was gonna go for a coffee and read my book. And as I stepped out of the house, which I was sharing with like 3 other, again, total strangers, I heard this voice say, "Hey, how's it going?" Or "Hello there." And I turned and looked, and there was an elderly Indigenous man wearing kind of like a tracksuit. And again, my memory of what he's wearing is a long time ago and I was getting hazy, but he's like a tracksuit as I recall. And he had a beat up gym bag over one shoulder, and he had a wooden walking stick with orange electrical tape wound around the bottom of it. I remember that. And I said, "Oh, hey." And he goes, "How are you doing over there?" I said, "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" And he goes, "Oh, I could do with a coffee as I make my way through the world here, but other than that, I'm fine." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going that way anyways. Walk with me. I'll buy you a coffee." So we walked together to the coffee shop, and I've done this for, this is like not the first time I bought coffee for a homeless guy. So we're shooting the breeze, and he asks me, I said, "Oh, what's your name?" He goes, "Oh, he told Dennis was his name. It's Dennis." And he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Oh, Brent." And he said, "Would you like to know my spirit name?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Tell me." He said, "Oh, mine is," he said, "it's Thunderbird Heartstrong." And he told me why, and I don't remember why. But he's like, "Would you like to know yours?" I said, "Yeah, sure, man. That'd be great." He goes, okay. He said, well, when we get to the coffee shop, I'll ask. He said, not everyone has one, but I'll ask. So we get to the coffee shop, and like I said, I've bought coffee for homeless guys before and since. Usually it's like either thank you for the coffee, I'm out of here, or it's thank you for the coffee, can I have something sweet? And he didn't do either of those things. He said, yeah, I'll have whatever you're having, 1 cream, 2 sugar, or whatever, something like that. I'm going to get us a table. I thought, oh, okay, sure. So we sat down, and now bear in mind, everything that happens after this happens sitting in front of a busy Starbucks on a busy street in Vancouver in broad daylight in the spring as tons of people go past. So we sat there for a couple hours, and he told me he said, your name, he kind of did a thing, and he's like, yeah, you actually do have a name. He said, it's the Stone Buffalo. Then he said, so I said, he told me he's a shaman. He said he's been a shaman since he was 16. Finally, I just like, I feel really comfortable with this guy. I don't like asking people for advice, but I thought, no, I'm going to ask him. So I told him the story I told you about the things I saw.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, oh, he said, I don't know why you're having these dreams. And I said, oh, they're not dreams. And he goes, oh, no, it's better if we call them dreams. I said, oh, okay. So he reaches into his duffel bag and he pulls out a recorder, like a plastic recorder, like a kid's instrument.
Yeah.
So he pulls out, it was translucent purple plastic, as I remember. And he blows this, as I recall, the same note like 15 times, something like that. And he looks around, he kind of shakes his head. And I should have said, like, he said, I don't know why you're having these dreams, but I'm going to ask. So then he looks around, shakes his head. So he did something else, and I never remember the second step, but I know the third thing was he reached into his bag and he pulled out a plastic maraca with Olmeca tequila on the side in faded red lettering. And he shook it like a bunch of times, and he kind of did this sing-songy thing, and he looked around. And then he got up, and I heard him say something about doctor, but I don't know exactly what it was he said. I just heard him say doctor. And he walked off, and I thought, oh, are we done? But no, he came back a few minutes later, and he had something green in his hand. And he shoved it in my mouth. And it's like some kind of plant. And he says, chew this and swallow it down. And I said, okay. And I, at this point, I kind of realized,
Sure, why not?
well, that's the thing, right? I realized, like, okay, so my life here now, I can do one or two things. I can go, huh, I don't think so, old man.
Right.
Take a walk. Or I can chew it and see what happens.
Sure.
And I genuinely think that was a major deciding point in my life.
Yeah.
Because I chewed it. I'm like not a person who just eats random stuff they find.
So just blind faith here.
I guess something told me do it. So I chewed the stuff and I swallowed it. So he puts some in his own mouth, chews it. He grabs my head with both hands, drags me forward and goes right on the crown of my head. And then he goes again back here.
Yeah.
And then he goes keeps pulling me forward as he does it. And goes all the way down my spine, sits me back up. And he says, okay, you're done. It's good. I said, what's done?
Was he blowing on? Was he spitting or blowing? Or?
Just blowing, just like,
okay.
Yeah, not because I actually thought he was spitting. I'm like, oh, it's crap going on my head. Gross.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because I used to have hair, right? And I'm like, I don't want to take this crap
Don't get
out
it
of
in my hair.
Yeah. And so I said, like, what's done? And he says, just give it a minute, you'll see. And so I sat there, and then I started to feel it. I felt it in my hands first. It felt like my hands didn't belong to me. They belonged to someone else, and they were moving at my suggestion. And I really started wigging out. And it's like he knew I was panicking. He said, calm down. You're going to be fine. And I said, but man, I feel like I'm going to pass out. He goes, you're not going to pass out. You're going to be fine. Just relax. I said, I feel like if I stand up, I'm just going to fall over. He goes, no, you won't. Stand up. You'll see. So I stood up. I was fine. I sat back down and it passed. And he goes, how do you feel? I said, yeah, I feel fine. He goes, yeah, okay, you're good. I said, well, what was that? And he said, oh, you had the wrong spirit in you. He said, I removed it, and what you felt was the new spirit settling in. And he said, the thing is, he said, your life is going to change now. And he said, I'm sorry for that because I couldn't give you a choice. This had to be done. So he said, it's not going to be bad, but things will change. And he said, I'm really sorry I couldn't give you a choice. There was just no other way to do this. I said, okay, well, thank you. And he goes, oh yeah. He points to the coffee and he says, you gave me a gift, so it's my gift to you. He grabbed his bag, grabbed his cane, toddled off down the sidewalk. That was it. Never saw him again. Went back to my room. I read for a while. And I thought, man, that was weird. And I realized, oh, I had barely eaten today. That's probably what it is. That's probably what it is. It's because I haven't eaten today. That's why I felt so weird. So I won't go outside. I was going to go get a burger from my favorite burger place. I stepped outside and a car drove past me. And it wasn't going fast. It wasn't near me, anywhere near me, but it terrified me. Terrified me. And I realized all around me, it's like I had been looking at the world through a window, and now someone had taken the glass out of that window. Everything was very vibrant. All the lights were very vibrant. All the sound was very loud. And I remember thinking, if this guy took away my enjoyment of cities, I'm going to find him and kick his ass because I really liked cities. If that's the thing that changed, I'm not happy. But I managed to get it under control, cross the street. And then on the way home, I smelled the stuff that he'd put in my mouth. I smelled the plant. So I followed the scent until I found the bush. And now I know jack all about plants. I'm an indoor kid. You know, I bars and coffee shops I like, outside not so much. But I ripped off a piece of this greenery and I took it home and I looked it up. I found it and I looked it up and it was juniper.
Juniper.
And apparently what I since have learned what I underwent was a very stripped down version of a Native American cleansing ceremony.
Huh.
Yeah.
So like when you eat juniper, like, I mean, does it make you trip a little bit or?
I'm not sure. It's very possible.
Okay.
I mean, I had so little of it.
Yeah.
And it happened so fast. Like I've had edibles before, you know, like usually it takes a little bit of time. But it's
Erica's gonna go find some juniper.
I need some juniper.
Make sure you get the right stuff because apparently there's juniper tree and juniper bush, and one of them is toxic.
Oh.
So look that up first.
Look it up first. Google it, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and so ever since then, I've seen the shadows 2 more times, and neither time could they get close to me.
Oh, okay. So you felt
yeah.
like it was offered you some protection, or
I think
it,
so.
like put a barrier or something.
Yeah, like
Interesting.
the next time I saw them, which again is a much longer story than we have time for, but it was standing in the corner of a room, but it was like it couldn't get close to me, but it was trying to figure something out because again, it kept kind
I
of turning
see.
its head from side to side.
Yeah.
And then the second time was almost 10 years later, actually. I had a bad dream and I woke up and I was like kind of on my side, so I kind of rolled over. And as I did, I gasped because there was what looked like a hooded shadow figure standing over me in bed. And as I gasped, it kind of zooped back like it just into the closet.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, right? Yeah, agreed.
I don't like that.
Well,
It's very interesting. Actually, because Erica and I recently we did a whole episode about shadow people because Erica used to see shadow people. I don't think you have recently.
oh, interesting.
Very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. And then we had another guest on who also had experience with shadow people, and she is a straight up reverend. And so we got some good insight, but it's just such like a mystery. Like, you know, there's so many theories
Yeah.
and so many different experiences because some people feel completely safe, other people feel threatened, and some, you know, Erica heard them speak before.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. What were they
Yeah.
saying?
Die.
It yelled at me, and that was in my closet. I had a complex with that closet after that.
Yep, they'll do it.
But the man in the hat, you know, have you heard that one?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen him walk down some stairs, and I was with 2 other people who also saw it. So I was like, okay, I'm not crazy, but it's weird and it's okay. But like, it's hard to talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because even now people look at you like there's like A, you want attention,
Yeah.
or B, there's something wrong with you, or C, you're just an idiot, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I sympathize.
What
Yeah.
do you think it is about places like Revelstoke where there's just so many experiences from so many different people? I mean, do you think it's something about the geography, or I mean, do you have any theories about that? Because there are certain places that do seem to be more haunted just as a whole, like a town or whatever, than others. What do you have any theories?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. Like, I think so much of this stuff is fundamentally unknowable. I think we kind of have to put certain labels on it in order for it to make any kind of sense to us.
Oh yeah.
But like when people, again, when someone says like, so you believe in ghosts, I have to get real nerdy because I have to be like, well, what do you mean by ghost? Like, what specifically do you mean by ghost? Do I think consciousness survives physical death? Or do I think people can be tied to us? Like, what do you mean by ghost? What kind of ghost? And people
Yeah.
hate me. This is why I don't get to invite a lot of parties. Because I just can't give a straightforward answer to this stuff.
You
Because I
can come
don't.
to a party with us.
Cool,
Yeah.
no, count me in. But yeah, because I don't think there's a straightforward answer. But like with Revelstoke, I think there's a combination of factors. I think there is. I'm told that Revelstoke's kind of crisscrossed by a lot of underground streams,
Mm-hmm.
and there does seem to be a connection to running water in this stuff. There does seem to be like,
Interesting.
yeah, exactly what that is. I'm not going to pretend to even have
Yeah.
any idea.
Yeah.
But
Well, we talk so much about Lake Lanier, which is a haunted lake, and it's huge. It's an
Mhm.
enormous man-made lake that's, many, many different paranormal experiences, and there's got to be something about the water, just the energy that's flowing from one place to another.
yeah, and then the other thing is, I think Revelstoke sits at the confluence of, I think, three river valleys.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the Columbia, the Inacomplu, and the Illecillewaet River all
Mm-hmm.
kind of flow together just south of town. And there is a Tibetan legend. I talk about this in the book. There's a Tibetan legend of a creature called Za, which
Hmm.
lives in river valleys, in places where the worlds kind of connect. And it blocks people from, it's meant to guard the barrier, basically, is the idea.
Mm.
And it's depicted in lore as a many-eyed serpent, a many-limbed, many-eyed serpent. I, of course, in the book, I've got a story called The Flooding Darkness, where, to go south of town now, it's a little more developed. It's a lot more developed, actually. But back in when I was writing the book, it wasn't quite as developed. Like, to give you an idea of how isolated Revelstoke is, to go south, that you go 45 minutes, then you get to a ferry terminal that only runs during business hours.
Wow.
To go north, you go 3 hours and that just stops. So Revelstoke's really isolated.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so to go south, if you go down the old road, which once upon a time used to lead to a number of smaller communities in the valley that were flooded out when they started damming the Columbia River in the 60s, that used to turn to dirt after Green Slide Road. It just stopped. And so when I really kind of I didn't have a car growing up in Revelstoke. So it wasn't until I started going back there to research the book that I had a car. And so I would, go check things out. And usually it got so dark down by Green Slide. And I've really come to learn, like, one of the few things I've kind of retained is I have, like, again, my sort of paranormal experiences have really kind of narrowed. Yeah. So, but I think back then I've always been, or ever since then rather, I've always been very aware of the types of darkness.
Yeah.
And down there, the darkness was so thick.
This is like kind of giving Stephen King vibes. What's the town?
Yeah.
Castle
Derry.
Rock
Oh,
or
Castle
something?
Rock, yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
kind of giving me
Yeah, it
those.
does. Yeah.
One night we're down there, and like a friend of mine who's a paramedic in town. Her and I were out for a drive catching up, and then because usually the way you do it if you're doing the circuit around town is you go down a Green Slide and you stop, turn around. But this night we got down there, and man, it wasn't dark at all. It was so clear. I'd never seen it that clear down there. So I said, well, heck with it. Let's keep going. So yeah, we went down. It was gorgeous, a beautiful, incredible night. You could see all the way down the valley. It was really quite pretty. I'd never seen it like that. But I think we were outside of the car, but I'm not 100%. We were standing there looking at it. And all of a sudden, man, looking down the valley, it was like it started filling up with shadows like a basin. Like it was coming back. Like something had been gone and was coming back.
Wow.
Yeah. And my friend, she doesn't have any memory of saying this. And again, she's not really this way inclined. She, like, spiritually, she's just not she's not in that wavelength. But even she kind of said, feels weird. Like as it was happening.
Yeah.
But again, she has no memory of that. It's like there's something down there. There's something in that valley. One other thing that, again, I don't know if I mentioned in the book. I'm sure I do, but I will just say, okay, so I can't tell you all of it on air,
Okay.
but I can tell you part of it. This guy was a miner. He dowsed for minerals on a mining map using a pendulum. There was one point south of town in the direction that all this happened to me that his pendulum stopped working. And he could not figure out why. But there was a point south on the map where the pendulum no longer worked. Like something was inhibiting its ability to function.
Yeah.
Mm.
And he reached him and the guy who taught him how to do it. And this guy probably, I think he was in like 60s at that time. They reached out, kind of like did a meditation to reach out. And again, this is sort of the part I can't really get into on air too much, but what was there, like something lied to them. Something lied to them and tried to get them to come out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And there's been a few people who've gone missing down there. And actually in 2017 in that region, 6 men in the span of, I want to say 5 months, 4 months, went missing in that area.
Oh,
Two guys actually went missing within days of each other. They were unknown to each other. They were camping in the same area. One was found in his truck. Sorry, no, yeah, I think he was found in his truck in the river. It looks like he had just driven into the river. And then the other guy, he was found in the lake.
that's creepy.
Yeah. So
It is
there's
creepy, yeah.
something down there. So I think that's part of it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know me and one of my friends, we rented an Airbnb and we were staying at a cabin on the Shenandoah. But I do kind of know what you mean by like the darkness or some kind of energy, because we were sitting on the porch. It's night, it's getting dark, we're just hanging out, and it's like all of a sudden it just like this energy came in and everything froze. My dog stood up and was staring in one direction. It was like we couldn't see anything, but like something was there. And it was very like negative and like kind of like evil. Like something was happening, but we couldn't see what was happening. There's
Right.
just
Yeah.
nothing there. But the dog, me and her, and we're just like, and I was like, I think we should probably go inside. Like something is happening.
Mhm.
And
And
that just
luck,
makes it harder to talk about later because everyone's like, okay, so you had a weird feeling. Like,
right.
you know?
Yeah. I do think there is something to that feeling of I shouldn't be outside right now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially in remote places. There was a night in Revelstoke, again, I think sometime between the first and second volumes of the book. But I was at my aunt's place. I was really restless, but I had this strong feeling like, no, don't go outside. And I thought, oh, whatever. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Quick drive. No one's
Explain
gonna
it
get hurt.
away. Mhm.
Quick drive. So I went for a drive. No one around, which is not that unusual in a town of 7,000 people at 11 o'clock at night on a weekday. Not a lot going on. But I went up what they call the Eastern Access, which is sort of like a back road to get onto the highway. And it was funny. I got this really strong, like, no, turn around. So I did. So I turned around. And I actually have one of the one missing time story I found from Revelstoke was from that direction of the highway. So I tend to listen, especially about that, because missing time is one of the few things that really freaks me out.
Yeah.
So I turned around, but as I was going back down the hill, and it's funny, like talking about it now, it's almost hard for me to believe, but it is how it happened. I was looking, and there's a house on the corner that has a bunch of like 5 trees of some description in the yard. They're like shaped kind of round.
Mhm.
So I thought I was looking at the shadows of the trees at first, because there's these 2 shadow things that were like huge, like this big around. And I thought, oh yeah, but then as my eyes followed the shadow up, or the outline of the shadows up, I realized they joined in the middle. Like I was looking at 2 huge legs.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like my but as soon as as soon as I got to the top of the thing and like I realized the legs joined, they were gone. I couldn't see them anymore.
Huh.
Oh. Hmm.
Interesting.
And so I went down, and again I started thinking, like, what just this all happened in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, so what did I just see? And I thought, okay, well, I could turn around and do that trip, like just go, and because I'll just prove it to myself. If I turn around, go down the hill, see him again, boom, shadows. I couldn't make myself do it, not because I was afraid, because I know some people would be like, oh, I want the story. I don't want to blow off the story. What a cool story. For me, I was afraid, genuinely afraid I wouldn't be able to see them again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is just around the corner from there is a street which I describe in the book as having someone told to me that is a street where they feel is like a thin spot because they said no matter how hot it is in town, no matter the season, this friend of mine said she goes there because that street's always colder than everywhere else.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to visit several places in Canada, but that
Yeah.
adds to our list, definitely.
I mean, the nice thing is it's on the road between Calgary and Vancouver, so it's a nice like it's on the drive between two major cities. It's a
It's
long
just
drive,
isolated in between.
just isolated. Yeah, it's on Highway 1. It's just between a couple things on
Just
Highway
nothing in
1.
between, yes.
Exactly.
That's no problem for us. We can handle that.
Oh, good. Okay.
I do have a question for you though. And it was kind of interesting. We were talking to this reverend the other day when we did our podcast. I'm just curious, like when you talk about these things, like does it worry you to be talking about it, or like you're re-inviting something to happen again? You know what I mean?
No, it doesn't bother me.
Doesn't bother
Okay.
you.
That said, it's situational and
Mm-hmm.
location dependent. So like
Mm,
I'm in a really stable place mentally now. Like I have, my like I again, the autism and the things like they bring with their own series of challenges.
sure.
And it's only really in the last 5 years since the pandemic that I've kind of come to understand those things about myself and kind of like adjust my
Mm-hmm.
environment to be more suitable. And it has really allowed me to be a much more balanced person. So, but when I was younger, yeah, I would definitely have issues with this. And like when I wrote the chapter on missing time, I started writing that actually at Denver Airport on my laptop. And I remember finishing it at my desk in Victoria. And we live pretty close to downtown, we live in a very dense neighborhood. I felt so freaked out at the end of writing that chapter. Like I felt like I was being watched. And
Mm,
was I really? Was I just freaking myself out? I don't know.
Right. Power of suggestion or
Exactly.
yeah.
It's funny enough, actually. I've been going for acupuncture the last 3 weeks to kind
Oh,
of help. Yeah, long story, but I thought I'd try it out.
yeah.
And the thing that I've noticed is, in addition to just generally being calmer, um, I seem to have a little more room in my head for spiritual stuff,
Mhm.
and so I've started kind of like, are you familiar with Randonautica?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. So
Not me.
do you like rando nodding, or like you're going to locations? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it
Okay.
generates random map points using what it
Right.
says is like true chaos kind of
Mm-hmm.
noise or whatever. I don't totally understand the process,
Yeah.
but you can intend. The point is like when you request a spot, you're meant to cast an intention.
Oh, right.
So and then like for example, I did this a bunch during the pandemic and had some kind of interesting little stuff happen. Nothing crazy, but just like interesting
That's
little
kind of
stuff.
when it kicked off. Yeah.
Yeah, there was those kids it took them right to a suitcase full of body parts.
Yes. Like people are finding things when they go to these locations, or there's
What's it
something
called again? What's the thing? What's the word? What?
Uh,
random, or
Randonautica.
yeah.
Okay.
I have it, but I've always been too afraid to do it.
And
Oh, we're gonna do it, Erica.
it's fun. Like I think the coolest thing for me when I did it during the pandemic was like it helps you break out of a routine because it's going to send you to a place probably that you've never been to before.
Right.
Oh,
Or like
yeah,
for
yeah.
me, it because I lived in Victoria for 16, 17 years, but
Yeah.
it just sent me to places that like, oh, it just wouldn't occur to me to go there because it's not part of my routine.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I found it really useful. I mean, it didn't send me to a suitcase full of body parts, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I but doing it here, I had like it just my intention was inspiration, obviously, because
Mhm.
I'm writing all these fear stories. And it was interesting. Like I started to feel a little bit of that connection again, that
Mm,
like connection to the strangeness. It doesn't freak me out. It doesn't bother me to talk about it. I'm not worried about inviting anything in.
Yeah.
But I also am aware that it's easy, like my interest and my enthusiasm can sometimes blind me
yeah.
Yeah.
to maybe some of the consequences of a place I'm going to. Like I'm like, oh, it's just a spooky thing, forgetting
Right.
that quite often that means I'm being drawn to a place that's not very happy.
Right.
And I
Mm,
think if you do too much of that stuff, I think it can start to seep in. So I think
yeah.
you gotta be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
So how's everybody doing on the drink? Okay, so this
Good.
is a drink check-in.
I
You're
finished mine.
you're good. All right. I poured a second glass of my little oak leaf, my little $4 oak leaf.
All my stuff's over there, and I think I should probably only have an ounce of tequila on air. That's probably a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, Brendan, I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you. So you got
Sure,
to
go for
answer
it.
them rapid fire. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you buy or live in a house with a haunted past?
Just the idea of being able to afford a house seems like a fantasy at this point.
Yeah, I know, right?
If money were no object.
No, probably not.
Okay. What is your dream collaboration in the paranormal world? I know you got a
Ooh,
lot of projects going on, but what's the dream? What's the big one?
oh man, I don't really have one. I'm embarrassed to say I'm very much a what am I doing
No,
right now kind of guy.
just
Um,
go where the wind takes you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm thrilled that Fear Daily has taken off the way it has. That's kind of like, okay, what next? So I don't know is the honest answer.
If you could spend the night in any haunted location, where would it be?
Ooh, I'd love to take another run at the Queen Mary.
Oh, have you done
I've
that?
been
Yeah,
You
we both freak
have.
out. I've always wanted to go.
it's super cool.
Oh, wow.
It's
And
super
you
cool.
would do
Yeah,
that again.
I would. Yeah, it was a cool place.
That is
I mean, it's
cool.
overpriced as hell.
Oh,
Yeah, it was cool. It was super cool. It just like we didn't do any of the tours. Those booked way in advance, or at least they did
oh,
back then. But just walking around the place all night was super cool. Very some vibes,
Yeah.
definitely some vibes.
okay.
Um,
I think Eric and I think that would be on our list too. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, I like haunted hotels. Or I've always wanted to stay at the Conjuring House. And
Mm.
that's not
Oh yeah.
far from me. Yeah,
That's
like
good.
and they do an Airbnb for the Conjuring House.
Yeah.
And
Oh, okay.
so, or at least they used to. I think the owner like was kind of nuts and something happened, so I don't know if they've reopened it.
Oh, I think I remember that. It was with
There
that
was some
happened
kind
with
of
like
lawsuit or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I don't think they're doing that anymore.
There's a lot of stuff in Connecticut, actually. It's kind of a creepy
Hmm.
state.
And New York. Yeah.
Yeah, New York, definitely.
So, Brennan, I would love it if you could give everybody the projects that you're working on, where they can find your work, and we would love it if you could tell us, are you working on something new and when can we look forward to that? Just give us the download on all
Okay.
of your work.
All right. Well, I mean, you can listen to my ghost show, the Ghost Story Guys. We publish every week. One week is a story show where we tell stories, true life, first person accounts of the paranormal centered around different topics. So most recently, we had a listener send in a bunch of translated stories from Germany. So we have this
Oh,
wonderful collection of like
That's
brand.
what I was listening to that one. That's
Eric
Oh,
was
cool.
telling
cool.
me about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that we've done that, and then on the opposite weeks we do mail shows. So people will write
Hmm.
in and we'll respond to their mail. So you can find that Ghost Story Guys everywhere podcasts live or at ghoststoryguys.com. My fiction show, Fear Daily, which I co-create with Brandon Scheck, that is also available everywhere podcasts live. And that's, again, a horror fiction show set in the 90s. First person, often first person accounts of like wild and unusual things, some of which are true. Now, most of them are not, most of them are fiction.
Mhm.
But I have managed to, there's some stuff that I cannot talk about. Like I'll hear stories on Ghost Story Guys, or I'll hear things because people tell me stuff, right? And like
Yeah.
but I feel like you can't tell this story on air.
Mm.
And like I was contacted by someone on Instagram recently who said like they were being approached in dreams by someone telling them that they want by a little girl who said they had gone missing and wanted her to come find them
Oh,
so
wow.
so she could like report her body, like basically like bring
Yeah.
her family rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
But
Oh,
word.
wow.
and so I obviously never told what the person's name was, but I talked to on the show and I actually folded that into a story from Fear. Like that's one I can be a little more public about. But there's other stuff that that it's just kind of it's actually happened, but you never know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's Fear Daily, and feardaily.com. And again, everywhere podcasts live. My book, A Strange Little Place, of course, as you mentioned, is available on Audible. You can get it on Kindle. But no, really, Fear Daily is kind of where it's at. And we're going to be publishing a series of collected editions because, of course, I've written so far about 211 stories.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Wow.
And so some of them, obviously not all of them are good enough to publish, but we're talking now about collecting them into editions, which you'll be able to buy. And the audiobooks will be available as well, read by Brandon, who is, of course, the host of Fear Daily. And what else? I was in a short film called Roast Beef. I don't know if it'll be out by the time anyone hears this, probably not, but just I'll put it
Awesome.
out there. Yeah, and I was also in a short or a feature film called Into the Hollow, which
Sweet.
I think will be out in the fall of this year. I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
I shot it last spring, but it's
Oh.
a super indie project. So
Amazing.
yeah, I'm not really an actor, as I'm sure you'll see when you watch the films, but
Yay.
it was a fun thing. I got kind of because I kind of moved where I moved, and there's not a lot of actors who kind of look bald and angry this way. So yeah, I in one of them I play a very abusive husband.
Mm.
Wow.
And yeah, and
Okay,
then
look at you. You're kind of flexing your creativity.
yeah.
That's
Uh,
cool.
I mean, I'm also very proud of a horror movie show I did for about a year and a half called Weird Together, and it's a me and a sociology professor, actually from Americus, Georgia. We talk about the sociology behind independent horror films. So
Oh,
that was a lot of fun, and
that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was really cool. We neither of us have the time for it anymore, but
Mm.
yeah, Weird Together is that one, and you can still find that
Okay.
everywhere podcasts
Great.
live.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We had a great
Yeah.
time talking to you. We think that you're amazing and all of your
Oh,
storytelling
thank you.
and we hope you keep going with the storytelling so that we can listen to it and then we can talk about it on our own podcast.
Yeah.
Well, lucky for you, I'm not good at anything else, so they're gonna have to pry it out of my cold dead hands.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I hope everybody finished their drink and had a good evening. But this was
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Be kind to each other. Times are
All right.
tough.
Mm.
Be
Yeah.
understanding, but don't be a
Yeah.
jerk.
That's getting harder and harder, but yes.
I feel you.
All right. Well, thank you so much,
Yes,
and
thank you.
we hope that y'all join us next time for Spirits Uncorked. Thank you so much.
Yay. Good stuff.
Oh, that was a ton of fun.